I grew up in a city called Pondicherry. It's a very, very small city near Chennai. The culture, the pace of life, the time, and the meaning of time are very, very different in that city compared to any other big cities. And this is the exact experience that every small city lad goes through. If you are part of and growing up in a small city and you are planning to move into a big city, there's going to be a big cultural shock waiting to happen. The very meaning of time is very, very different in big city compared to a small city. The cultural interactions are very different in a bigger cities like Bombay or Bangalore or Chennai or even Delhi can be very different from even the neighboring small cities because the pace of life is very different. Different kinds of people come into the big cities and therefore big corporations, the transportation, the cultural shock, everything can be very, very different compared to what you experience in a small city. So, if you are planning to move into a big city, or if you've just moved to a big city and contemplating what the hell life is, this is for you. The first thing that you need to grapple with is the cultural shock and the language barrier. Both can be very different. Even if you are moving from a very, very small city, which is nearing a big city, the language is not a big barrier. Still, culturally, there could be very, very big differences. I moved in from Pondicherry to Chennai. Language is not a big problem. However, I still faced a lot of cultural shocks because the pace of life and the meaning of time in a small city is very, very different compared to a bigger city. The bustle, the pace, the fastness with which people move and interact are very different. In a small city, people have a lot of time for each other. They have time to chit chat, they have time to talk to each other, they have time to ask about each other's well being, which all of that goes for a toss in a bigger city. So, what you should be ready with? You should be ready with the openness to face the challenges that comes with the cultural shock. The pace of life is going to be different. You need to be mentally ready for that. People are not going to have time for each other. People are going to be looking like they are doing very, very superficial transaction. We should be ready for that. Unless you are ready mentally for all of these changes, you're going to find it very, very difficult to adjust to a bigger city life. The second dimension, which is going to hurt for people who are moving from smaller cities to bigger cities, is the expectation of work at companies. The way we have worked, the way you might have worked in a smaller city can be very, very different from one when it comes to a bigger city. Obviously, the bigger cities are bigger corporations, bigger companies, and people who have moved from other places, even from abroad, into that city. And hence, the pace at which they expect things to be done can be very, very different, and most times are. The demand, the expectation are completely different, and that creates huge pressure in terms of performance for people who are moving from smaller cities. Culturally, you had a lot of time when you had been there in a smaller city, but now you don't have the time. You don't have the time to adjust. You don't have that support group which you might have had when you were in that smaller city before. And all of that would be added pressure when you are in a bigger city like a Bombay or a Chennai or a Bangalore or a Delhi for that matter. These are something that you need to keep in mind because the bigger corporations are going to demand performance, and the demand of performance is going to happen right from the very first day. You may not have time to even adjust, and you need to start performing, and your work life balance is going to go for a toss. You might have had lots of time when you were in a previous city, and the moment you move into a bigger city, you may not have the time because transportation, travel also is going to cut down in terms of your time. And you need to be mentally ready for all of this. What should you do to handle this whole expectation and the demand and the work life balance going for a toss? You need to be adaptable. You need to be resilient. You need to have networking. You need to have people. You need to have support groups. Only because of all of this, only when you have all of this, you will be able to handle the work pressure. You will be able to handle the strain that comes on you. You will be able to handle the expectation and the demand which will be coming onto you. The third dimension that you need to think about is the financial strain which can come onto you. Obviously, the avenues for spending itself are very small in a smaller city. You may not be expected to spend too much on yourself. You might be having your family over there, and therefore all your stay and lodging and food are all taken care of. But the moment you move into a bigger city, all of that goes for a toss, especially if you're not living with your family. The moment you move into a bigger city, the rents are going to go up, the cost of food is going to go up, and the cost of travel also is going to go up. And adjusting to all of this is going to take a toll on you. So you need to be very, very clear that this is the amount that you are making, let's say 100 rupees you are making, and what is going to be your wherewithal to pay in terms of rent. How much are you expected to pay in terms of travel? How much are you expected to pay in terms of food? You need to have some calculation. In today's age, with ChatGPT and with your friends around and WhatsApp, it should be easy to calculate all of this. And therefore, with all of this calculation, all of this expectations in mind, only you should be moving into the big city and making that adjustment. It's going to be difficult to make that adjustment, but with financial discipline in place, saying that, okay, I'm going to save first, and this is going to be my necessary expenses, and I'm going to pay for that necessary expenses. And before I fulfill what my wants are, before I start going to movies, before I start going to my parties and so on, I'm going to save. When you have that financial discipline, only then you will be able to survive in a big city. And it is important to have that financial discipline in place. The fourth challenge could be on the social angle, where because you are in an unknown place, and maybe in a place where you may not even know the language fully well, local language fully well, you may know only English, and English becomes a connecting language. And even in that language, you may not be very proficient. And the language barriers come into place, the unknown place coming to place, and you are missing your folk, you are missing your friends, you are missing your family. All that homesickness also will be coming into place. The only way to adapt in such a place is by seeking out friends, seeking out people, seeking out people from maybe your community, maybe your place, maybe people who speak your language, maybe people who have your customs, so that you are not too out of place in that new city. But you need to create all of this, and all of this is going to take time, and you need to be open to that idea. It will happen, but it is going to happen over a period of time. It is going to take time, even in this age of internet and WhatsApp and everything together. You may still not be able to find the right people quickly. And hence, your social network will take time building it up. Your friends network will also take time building up. And in the interim time, till the time that your network is fully in place, you are going to struggle a little bit, and you should be mentally ready for that. The last one is all about the transportation and the mobility and the pollution and the health hazards. All of these are interconnected. You might be required to travel a lot of time, and therefore you may not have enough time for yourself, enough time for taking care of your health, enough time for even good sleep. You need to be prepared for this. You need to be mentally ready. You need to make adjustment in terms of your body rhythm, in terms of how you are going to handle it. The second, the pace of life, which we have already talked about, is going to be very, very different in a bigger city. And that pace of life can be very frightening for a lot of people. When you are used to a slow, relaxed rhythm of a small city, and when you come to a bigger place, and the bigger place is bustling, starts at much earlier in the morning and doesn't seem to end, and the nightlife is going on and on and on. People don't even know when people go to sleep, and they're up in the morning and running to the office. That kind of an inhuman kind of a situation can be very frightening. But when you are moving into a big city, you need to make that mental adjustment and look at one, how to take care of your mental health, how to take care of your physical health, and how to escape pollution, which can be very, very painful, and also plan for within the urban city travel. These are not easy points to decide, not easy points to think about, but unless you reflect, think, plan for it, the movement to a bigger city is going to take very, very long in terms of you adjusting to it. But once you make an adjustment, once you are cognizant of all of these five angles, and you are adaptable for that, you're resilient for that, you make plans, you make your network, you make your friend circle, and you seek out families and similar people or community people or people who speak your language and customs and food. All of these are necessary, but till the time that all of these are in place in the new place, you are going to struggle a little bit. But the very awareness that you will be struggling a little bit helps you, because you're not shocked. You are expecting the shock to come in, and that expectation lowers down the impact of the shock. but you will be able to make that adjustment. So many people have made that adjustment so many times before us, and you will also be able to make that adjustment. All of us make over a period of time. What I'm talking about is ability to adapt quickly so that that shock doesn't last for a long time. Wishing you all the best. See you in our next episode.